radicals. You're on. Do you see the formula on page 718? De Moivre?
Yeah.
Yeah, this French guy. And once again, his name is on the formula, but they can find no proof that he wrote the formula. He just, they all the time stole each other's stuff and put their name on it. They didn't have patents and trademarks and all that kind of stuff like we do. They just, some of them weren't very honest.
Well, like, if they did a group project, they can claim they did it on their own.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
Or, if they did a group project, and you girls did a group project, and Sammy's sitting here on the other side of the room, and he listens, he could publish and put his name on it.
That's right.
I mean, that's just what they did. Okay, a complex number, remember, was the letter Z. Raised to a power, I'm going to raise it to the n power, which means that basically I have r cosine theta plus I sine theta to the n power. Do you agree with that? Isn't that what that means? Now, to raise them to a power, we take r to the n, and then it's cosine n theta plus I sine of n theta. So basically, I raise r to the power, and I multiply theta times the power. That's an n, not an h. Sorry, I got a little carried away there. So, you ready to work one? If I have 4 cosine 70 degrees plus I sine of 70 degrees, this whole thing is raised to the third power. All right? I raise the r to the power. So I have 4 cubed. What does 4 cubed equal? Anybody know? 64. Can I cheat and write cis? And it is 3 times 70, which is 210 degrees. Now, the problem is, today, we are not going to leave it in polar form. We're going to switch it to rectangular. You remember how to do that? Isn't it 64 cosine 210 plus 64I sine of 210? Is that right? Yeah, you agree?
Yes.
210 is in what quadrant?
33.
Quadrant 3. And what does that make my reference? 30. So this is negative 1, 2, and negative radical 3. So what's the cosine of 210? So I have 64 times negative radical 3 over 2 plus 64I times what? Can I simplify this to negative 32 radical 3 minus 32I? What's wrong?
I'm just confused on where we got, like, how did we
Isn't 210 180 plus 30? Are you with us? All right, can we do one a little bit harder? Negative 2 minus 2i to the fourth. We have to convert it to polar and then go back to rectangular. Unless you want to just take out negative 2 minus 2i and FOIL it out 4 times. This is still easier, isn't it? Okay, what's R? R should be easy for you. Is it? 2 radical 2. Right? Everybody okay with that? We can do that one without having the calculator help us, I think. R is 2 radical 2. Now, negative 2 is in what quadrant? 3? So we're here. This is negative 2 and this is negative 2. What's my angle? Okay. Do you remember that I said we're going to convert it to polar and back to rectangular? So you guys can choose if you want degrees or radians.
Radians.
Radians?
I think radians are easier.
Which is really funny because
What's it make sense? Okay, so would you agree it's 5 pi over 4?
Yeah.
Okay. So I have 2 radical 2 cis 5 pi over 4 to the 4th power. Is that right? You okay with that? Okay, so don't I now take 2 radical 2 to the 4th? Anybody know what that is? Use your parentheses. You got what?
64.
Good, that's what I got. So I have 64 cis what? 5 pi. Y'all agree? Okay, so it's 64 cosine 5 pi plus 64i sine of 5 pi. 5 pi. Guys, isn't that,
That's just big.
it's just right here,
Just 2 of these.
isn't it? So it's equal to pi. What is the cosine of pi? No, negative 1. 64 times negative 1 plus 64i. What's the sign of pi?
That one's 0.
0. So is it my answer negative 64? So I started in rectangular, I went to polar, I worked it, and I went back to rectangular. Right? Could we check this one? If you wanted to? What cadence? Okay. Just making sure you're okay.
Couldn't you just FOIL out negative 2 minus 2i before them?
You sure could.
Check it. I don't want to do that. But that's one way you can check it.
Yep, that's it. Well, it's not the only way, but it's the only way you know it. So.
Probably like 3 different ways to check it that we don't know yet.
Okay, are we good with this?
Yes.
This is the last lesson on polar numbers.
All right, because you have ten something.
Can we do another example?
Yeah.
Sure.
Assign the assignment.
In fact, I'm going to write this assignment up here. In fact, I will let you pick one for today's.
Oh! I like this idea.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
That's 10 problems.
It's 9 because you just asked me to work one of them for you. Which one?
Wait, let me check.
723, 43 through 52.
Ooh, so many to choose.
What would you say is the hardest one?
I would say, first of all, I would say it's harder to start in rectangular because you have to make 2 changes. Does that make sense?
Should we do 51 or 52?
You realize that
Let's do 50. I don't like the decimal.
But there's more.
Oh, there's one other.
Yeah, let's do 50 now.
48 has a radical 5. I don't like that.
47.
Yeah, but it also has a
Radical 3
5,
is
whatever.
Okay, let me ask you this. On 48, am I going to have radical 5 to the 5th power?
Yes.
Do you know how to do that?
Isn't that just 5? That's 5.
No.
5 to the 4th power.
It's this, isn't it?
So
Isn't it this?
it's 5 times.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
So that's 25 to the 5th
That's
power.
5. That's 5 radical 5.
No, it's
25 to the 5th power.
Right.
25 radical 5.
I almost had it.
Almost.
I was right.
So just making sure radicals, we're good with that. And I would say,
I agree. I don't like the decimal form.
Yeah.
well, okay. Okay, look at number 50. Are you actually going to have 33.75 times 4? Put that in your calculator.
That's really easy.
Is it times 4 or to the 4th power?
Times 4. The angle's times. What'd you get, Liz?
Yeah. I see what you're talking
What? So that's an easy one to work with. You see, once you do that,
I think 51.
They look so easy though.
I'm going to tell you just
51 has a negative.
Just personally, I think 51 is a little more difficult.
Let's do 28.
Even though it's an odd, I think it's more difficult.
Okay.
Okay, so is it good?
Yes.
Okay. So it's 2 radical 3 minus 2i to the 5th, right? What's r?
It is,
Okay, let's talk about finding r. You all seem to hesitate every time I say what's r. Let's talk about it. When I square this, I square the 2 radical 3. I square each of them. Isn't that 4 times 3?
yes.
Which is 12.
Plus 4.
Then I square this. So I have 12 plus 4, 16, and the square root of that is, see, r shouldn't be that hard. Don't make it that hard. Does that help when I tell it like that, say it like that? Okay, so this is 4 cis. Now, what quadrant is this in?
Second. No. Yeah.
Fourth. This is 2 radical 3. This is negative 2. Isn't this pi over 3?
And let's also see the right and the down.
Wait,
What did it be?
that's a pi over 6.
Oh, you're right, it's pi over 6. Good job. So what is this?
So it's,
7, or
11 pi over 6. Right?
I'm getting my accent.
to the 5th power. Good with that? Okay. What's 4 to the 5th?
1024.
So I have 1024 cis
Maybe cosine 5 times 11 pi over 6.
55 pi over 6.
What?
Huh? Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, 55 pi over 6. In your calculator, type in 55 sixths.
55 6.
Minus 2. Okay, all I did is subtract a rotation.
43 over 6.
Subtract 2 again. What?
7 pi over 6.
7 pi over 6? Much easier to work with. So this is actually 7 pi over 6. Much easier to work with, right? So 7 pi over 6 is in what quadrant? 3. And that makes this -1, this negative radical 3, and this 2. Is that correct? So I have 1024 cosine 7 pi over 6 plus 1024 I sine of 7 pi over 6, right? What's the cosine of 7 pi over 6? So I have 1024 times negative radical 3 over 2 plus 1024I times negative 1/2, which is what?
Negative 512 radical 3 minus 512i. Easy peasy.
Was that too bad? Well, you know what that had in it? Had a lot of details. I could lose this negative sign. I could lose this number. I could, Did that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Okay? So now we're good with the homework?